Hello, welcome to the GLP-1 Hub podcast. My name is Anna Reisdorf. I'm a registered dietitian and GLP-1 user. I am super excited about the interview that I have today. Dr. Chris Rhodes is a nutritional biochemist, and he is the founder of Mimio Health, but also a fasting expert and a longevity expert. I mean, the things he has to say are incredible. This is one of my top favorite conversations. I just love talking to smart people about smart things on this podcast. Anyway, I want to remind you that we have a store. If you're looking for resources for your GLP-1 journey, you can visit my website at GLP-1 Hub. And you can find a store on there. We have a guide called a Beyond the Shot guide that helps you with everything that you need to get started, and also several meal plans and recipe collections if you're struggling about what to eat. So check over there if you're looking for different resources, and let's get on with the show. Whether you're working on general weight loss, maintaining your progress, or transitioning off GLP-1s, Calocurb is a natural and effective support tool to help you stay on track. Calocurb is a 100% natural appetite management supplement featuring amorosate, a patented hops extract developed in New Zealand over 15 years and backed by 30 million in scientific research from Plant and Food Research, New Zealand's largest Crown Research Institute. It has undergone 3 clinical studies to determine its effectiveness, and it works by activating gut-brain signals, including GLP-1, to help you feel full faster. It's clinically shown to reduce cravings by 40%, hunger by 30%, and caloric intake by 18% in just 1 hour. You can try it for yourself at calocurb.com and get 10% off when you use the code ANNA, ANA10. That's Anna, ANA10 at calocurb.com. All right, welcome to the GLP-1 Hub podcast. I want to welcome today Dr. Chris Rhodes. He is a nutritional biochemist and fasting longevity researcher. He has dived deep into the area of fasting research, discovered some fasting metabolites that I'm sure we're going to dig into, do specific things. So he's discovering new things about the body, and I'm so excited to welcome him today. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. So happy to be here.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Can you introduce yourself really quickly and tell us a little bit more about what you do and the fasting research and everything you're
Yeah.
involved with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Dr. Chris Rhodes. I got my PhD in nutritional biochemistry from UC Davis. And while I was there, like you said, was diving really deep into research behind human fasting. It's one of the only interventions that we know of that can reliably extend the lifespan in model organisms. But then also beyond that, both clinically and experimentally can help to treat, prevent, or delay most major diseases. And that was really, really fascinating to me because fasting does all of that without actually adding anything into the system, right? So it's not this superfood or this wonder drug, but somehow fasting is activating this, dormant longevity bio program that we all already have inside of us, but just, isn't ordinarily turned on. So when that idea kind of clicked for me, made me really mad initially because I was like, oh, great. My body knows how to, live to be 120 years old and in perfect health, but it's just not doing it. So that was what kind of catapulted me into the fasting research space. I really wanted to figure out if there was a way that we could, decode what was happening in the human body during a fast and find a way that we could recreate those benefits, activate that longevity bio program on demand. And so that research eventually led me to the discovery of Mimio, which is a fasting mimetic supplement, basically designed to give you the benefits of fasting, but without actually having to fast. And that's what my company does now.
Okay, cool. So in terms of your interest in fasting, and I want to cover all of that because that's really interesting. I'm a fasting baby because I don't like fasting. So we'll start from there. But with your personal interest in fasting and longevity, did you have like an experience that you were like, I want to live to be 120? What was the motivation? Or maybe a family member that had a health problem, or some people always have like a personal.
Yeah, an origin story. For me, it was really just a lot of scientific curiosity. I got out of undergrad with my BS in biochemistry and didn't really know, what I wanted to do with it, like a lot of college kids, right? I knew I wanted to be something in research, but wasn't really sure what I was passionate about, what lit me up. So, I took an immunology fellowship at Stanford, then started pouring through all the research papers I could get my hands on, and eventually came across healthy aging and longevity research, which I thought was really, really fascinating because it used to be, myth and legend, Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth and all of that, but now is a very, very active and rigorous area of scientific study. And I thought that that was just amazing because when you look at, longevity and lifespan, it's kind of this one thing that solves everything, right? If you can figure out the aging process, if you can prevent it, if you can reverse it, then at the same time, you can really prevent and reverse most major diseases as well. Because if you can, get the body to behave as though it's, a 25-year-old, right? There's so many cellular repair mechanisms, so many regenerative processes, so many protective mechanisms that we kind of lose to dysfunction and decline over time with age that we could regain and then keep ourselves healthy in a much more, natural and vital state. And of course, as a 20 something year old at the time, that was really appealing to me. I was like, okay, cool, great. Maybe I can be the generation that's, gonna figure this out, that's gonna solve aging. And I was in good company at the time. So it felt more possible. And that's kind of what catapulted me into it.
So do you think that there's like a historic sort of reason that fasting does this? Like, is there like some kind of like ingrained thing in our bodies that make us like need to fast every so often to extend our longevity? Where does this come
Yeah,
from?
I would say that it's not necessarily a need so much as it is an adaptation. So when you think about things from an evolutionary perspective and what, fasting is telling the body, when there's not a lot of nutrients around when you're fasting, that's kind of an environmental cue that then tells your body this environment is not very good if I want to have children and try to keep them alive, right? There's not even enough nutrients for me, so there's not going to be enough nutrients for, the next generation. So what your body does in response to that is basically turn on all of these, longevity promoting mechanisms, these metabolic efficiency processes that help to keep, this current generation alive as long as possible so that we can go out and find a new environment that's like replete with nutrients and like plenty of stuff not only for us, but also for the next generation so that we can propagate the species and continue on like that.
See, I knew there was an underlying reason. I knew, and I never heard anybody say that. So that's great. That's a great explanation. So tell me in your research, because you were doing research about like long fasts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 36 hours.
Yep.
Is that the magic number or?
That's the magic number. Yeah, when you look at it in terms of the experimental data on lifespan extension, where we get the best lifespan extension in animal models is through this process called alternate day fasting. And that's basically, one day of normal eating, one day of no calories, just water fasting, then, another day of normal eating, then another day of fasting, and then you rinse and repeat for, the entirety of the organism's life. And that's where we can see anywhere between, like a 30 to 80% lifespan extension, depending on the animal. And that's, actually without having to reduce calories as well. So there's some, interesting element of these 36-hour fasts that are really promoting this, longevity pathways.
So 80% longer? Like that's
Hmm.
wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a
Yeah, that
human,
will
that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy. Yeah, for sure. And there's variation, between experiment to experiment, animal to animal, but it's really, really cool when you actually get to see it because you're not even changing their caloric intake necessarily, but just altering meal timing and getting these very robust impacts on both health and lifespan.
Cool. So then once that 36 hours happens, you've discovered that there's these metabolites. So explain to me what those are and like what they're doing and why this was a new discovery?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did for that study was we had 20 people come in, 10 men, 10 women to avoid a gender bias, which, happens a lot in science, and we were really trying to patch up, find these universal processes that were happening in fasting. We had them just basically fast for 36 hours, took a before and after, and we looked at their cellular functionalities, their plasma functionalities. And what we found was that when people fasted for 36 hours, they were really functionally enhanced. So their cells became more anti-inflammatory, they became more antioxidant, they became more cardioprotective, they had better metabolic functionality, which is really impactful and important because you don't see that in nutrition research, right? You can't do a one-day intervention, a 36-hour intervention, and turn these already young, healthy people into super people. So we were really, really curious, okay, well, what's the difference between this baseline state and this 36-hour fasted state that could be causing these beneficial effects? So we did what's called comprehensive metabolomics, basically looking at all of the small molecule components of the plasma. And what we found was that during a 36-hour fast, there was this unique set of metabolites that were created in the body that were really only elevated during a fast. And we found that those were the ones that were responsible for activating a lot of these cellular health and longevity effects of fasting. So we basically screened through those molecules and we're able to find this synergistic combination of four of them that when we put them together could recreate all of those same cellular benefits of fasting and extend lifespan by 96%.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Like that's like double somebody's life, right?
That's right. Yeah. And I to couch that, this was in C. elegans, which is, like the most common model organism for lifespan extension. Their typical lifespan is only about a month to 45 days.
Okay.
So we were able to, extend that out to, 60 to 90 days, right?
Okay. So these metabolites that you discovered that were doing all this amazing stuff and extending the lifespan, you were able to like capture them and put them in a product?
Yeah, that's right. So these are metabolites that the body naturally produces. They're just part of our cells. They're part of our normal biological processing, but they're just not very highly produced unless you fast. But the nice thing is that they also exist in a lot of different places throughout the food stream, right? Because they're also components of other organisms' cells. So we can extract all of them from food-based sources.
Okay. So it's kind of like, so then how did you know? Because like, for example, the GLP-1, right? When the GLP-1s were discovered, they didn't last very long in the system. They had to go to the mouth of a lizard to find one that lasted longer, whatever. So how did you know that if you took it orally, that you'd have the same effect? Because some things like your stomach acid destroys it, or, there's like a lot of factors.
Yeah, absolutely. So in order to figure that out, basically, because we didn't know, right from the start, we did our original discovery study that was all in human cells and in the C. elegans models. Then after we had the formulation, we then went on and did a human pilot study. And for that, we had people come in, eat a standardized breakfast on its own, a standardized breakfast alongside a placebo control. Then, took their cells, took their plasma, looked at their functionalities like that. Then after a washout period, had those same people come back, eat that same standardized breakfast, but then alongside a placebo control. The actual Mimio formulation. And so what we found there was that when people ate along with the placebo, there was this big loss of plasma functionality. Basically, they became more pro-inflammatory, they were less antioxidant, they were less cardioprotective, they had worse metabolic function.
What'd you feed them?
Really,
like Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, it was actually just like a normal meal. It was 2 Lara bars, if you can believe that. So yeah, it's basically just dates and cashews, right?
Okay.
And this is very typical, just like in the nutrition world. This is called the postprandial response. And when you think about that, basically what's happening when you eat is that you're taking a bunch of foreign molecules into your body, right? They're non-human dates and cashews, right? So what's happening there is you get a bunch of, number one, influx, right? All the nutrients are coming into your system. Your body then has to kind of go into high alert mode in order to deal with them. So it goes from this rest, maintenance, repair homeostasis to then, okay, like everything's in trouble. We've got all these nutrients. We got to like shunt them around, move them where they need to go. So it's a lot of work actually processing the metabolites and the metabolism. And then at the same time, since these are foreign molecules, you're then triggering immune responses and inflammatory responses called like dietary inflammation. So it's really well known to be not as functional as a typical like, fasted state, even an overnight fasted state. So what we saw there was very classic, very typical. What was interesting though is when they ate that same breakfast with Mimio, we found that we could not only prevent all of that loss of function, but then actually add gains of function on top of that mimicked what we saw when they were fasting. So instead of being pro-inflammatory, they became anti-inflammatory and antioxidant and cardioprotective and metabolically functional. And that's kind of when we knew that, yes, these molecules are like they're getting into the system, they're passing through digestion. We can see their concentrations increase, and then we're having these fasting like benefits from them as well.
So is the product like literally, if you looked at the back of the ingredients, it would say fasting molecules or whatever? I'm sure they have names.
Yeah,
Or
they all
would it have like, is there anything else in there? Like any vitamins, minerals, herbs? I don't know.
Yeah, right now it's just the bioactive metabolites themselves. And those are nicotinamide, spermidine, palmitoyl ethanolamide, and oleoyl ethanolamide. Those are the four molecules that we identified really highly upregulated during fasting, have these synergistic effects with each other.
And so that's like it.
Yeah,
Like,
that's it.
and
That's
then
all. That's
maybe
all
like
that's
in
in
some
it.
kind of capsule or
Yep,
something.
in a capsule. Yep, exactly.
Interesting. So, and now it's time for the Hero Bread tip of the week. And today's tip is not about bread because Hero just launched a brand new pasta. So I've got the Hero Penne right here. And our tip of the week is all about making a filling meal on the go. So try this quick recipe idea for a protein-packed, high-fiber meal prep meal. So start by cooking the Hero Penne, toss it with cooked ground turkey, sauteed peppers, and marinara sauce. Put it into individual containers for the week for a filling on-the-go lunch. If you want to try the new penne pasta or any of their incredible products, you can get 10% off your first order with the code GLP, the number one hub, that's GLP-1 Hub at hero.co. On my GLP-1 journey, I've learned that I really need to maximize every calorie, and Grunes helps me do just that. Grunes are a convenient, comprehensive formula packed into 8 gummies a day. This isn't a multivitamin, a greens gummy, or a prebiotic. It's all of those things and then some at the fraction of the price. Bonus, it tastes great. Their sugar-free option has just 1 gram of net carbs and 20 calories, but still delivers 6 grams of fiber and over 60 ingredients to nourish your body. And the best part, it's convenient. There's no shakes, mixing, just grab a daily pouch and go. So whether you're running errands or need a sweet treat at night, Grunes fits right into your routine. And if you want to try them for yourself, visit the site grunes.co, that's gruns.co, and use the code GLP1 Hub, that's GLP the number one hub, and you can get up to 52% off your order with that code. So a lot of my audience is obviously GLP-1 users. So how does fasting connect with GLP-1? Or like, does fasting increase GLP-1? Like, can this be paired together to increase longevity? Like, what are your thoughts on the connection between that?
Yeah, so fasting increases GLP-1, but like not to a super significant extent because GLP-1 is much more tied to postprandial metabolism, which is why it works so well, right? And it's also why it's, typically very transient. So it's like, you're taking in a meal. I think we've all kind of, hit the wall, so to speak, when we're eating a meal and we get really full and we're like, oh, I can't eat anymore. That's kind of like what the GLP-1s are doing for you. They're being secreted very quickly and in response to, that kind of like stomach expansion and that big nutrient intake. And that's giving a feedback signal to your brain to say, okay, we're done. We can stop eating. And of course, there's like, other peptides and hormones and metabolites and molecules that are involved in that as well. But GLP-1 definitely. So what's interesting is that your body as a, adaptation to fasting as well has a similar response, right? And if you think about that, that makes sense because when you get to these, really late stage of fasting, 36 hours, whatever it is, it doesn't do your body any good to be, doubled over in hunger pangs when it needs to be, focusing on going out there trying to find some berries or hunt down a gazelle or whatever it is. So we think that these, the rise in like GLP-1 and specifically in our case, oleoyl ethanolamide, OEA, is in response to basically, helping you control your hunger so that you can focus on the task of finding food and keeping yourself alive.
So if you were not on a GLP-1 and you took this medication, would you experience a decrease in appetite or?
Yeah, so Mimio does have appetite suppression effects. We actually just completed a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study where we looked at men and women ages 50 to 75 and basically had them on Mimio for 8 weeks, tracking their appetite as well as tracking their blood work and some of their digestive symptoms as well. What we found there was that Mimio has very powerful impacts on appetite suppression. So we were able to control maximum daily hunger, overall daily hunger, distraction from cravings went down, their ability to eat only when hungry went up. And then when they ate, they were, they had better satiety. They got fuller faster and stayed fuller longer, which is really impactful. We also had, lower indices of abdominal pain, lower incidences of bloating. And then we were also able to improve a lot of these, metabolic health markers. So better glucose levels, better cholesterol levels, and then lower cellular stress levels as well. So, really everything that fasting should be doing for you kind of just simplified into this Mimio capsule. But yes, the appetite suppression effects do come through pretty strongly. And that's, again, from the oleoyl ethanolamide that's in the formulation.
Interesting. So if one, because there's a the more that I'm getting into this GLP-1 space, the more I see that there are some people who just don't really respond very well to medication. Like they don't experience the reduction in food noise. They don't really lose weight. They don't really lose, So there's got to be like another problem. And of course, that could be many things. So if you were to use these two in combination, do you think that that may help support some of that?
Yeah, I think that that's definitely a possibility. I can't say
Sure.
definitively for sure. We haven't run the study, but we know that oleoyl ethanolamide, it's involved in the gut-brain axis, has similar efficacies to GLP-1, but operates through different pathways. So OEA is a PPAR alpha stimulator, so kind of helps to reorient cellular metabolism from more of like a glucose utilizing metabolism to a fat oxidation using metabolism. And then also, does have direct brain activity as well by helping basically like, suppress those cravings. And it's been shown to not only suppress food cravings, but, other cravings as well, like, alcohol dependency, things like that. So in the same way that we have that same efficacy of GLP-1, right? The OEA is kind of performing the same task, but just in a different way through different pathways. So hypothetically, combining those two things together should give you, an effect that's greater than the sum of their parts, especially because, OEA and the GLP-1s are all part of that satiety cascade that we were talking about before.
Right. So that's interesting. So when you're taking the Mimio, do you also fast or is it just like doing what he does? So you just eat your food?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly it. We've done 3 clinical studies with the formulation so far, and in each one of those, we just had people eating normally without any kind of change of diet or lifestyle. But you can definitely still use Mimio if you like to fast, and that's actually what I like to do with it. So I'm still on like a 1 meal a day kind of schedule, just because that's what really fits into my life. I love being able to get up in the morning, just kind of focus on work throughout the day, then get to the end of it and kind of compartmentalize everything, and then have my big food reward. So it's just a nice release for me. So I'll take my Mimio in the morning alongside some green tea. Those appetite suppression effects really help to carry me through the day. I'll work out in a fasted state and then have my big reward meal. And I think that is awesome because you get if you're doing anything less than a 36-hour fast, these molecules aren't going to be super highly elevated. So this is just kind of a way to supercharge those benefits and then make fasting easier.
Right. So you're a younger man, and I am a perimenopausal woman. And I feel like everything I do screws up my hormones, right? Just like, look at something wrong and they're out of control. So I'm always cautioned with other women my age about fasting. And I understand like research, the benefits, like I get it, like there's all this research and all this stuff, but I feel like we already have issues with cortisol and it might spike your cortisol. There's just a lot of things to consider when you're a woman. So how would you, for an older woman, because that's most of my audience, how would you recommend if they want to get those benefits from fasting, like how would you recommend that they either add the product, dabble into fasting? It has to be slightly different, I think, for you versus me.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the reasons why we really focused in on making Mimio, right? You have all of these amazing benefits of fasting, but it's very well known, very well documented that it is much harder and more complicated to fast for women than it is for men because of the contributions of like the hormonal cycles that are happening, the perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. It's all kind of these complicating factors that men just don't really have. And we see that all the time that, women come up to us when we're like at conferences or, just like, interacting with the brand, telling us how difficult it is for them to fast or was to fast, and how they ended up incorporating Mimio was as a way to, like we said before, kind of enhance their own fasting that they're doing and just kind of make the process easier. Or for a lot of women, just taking it and then saying, okay, great, I can get these fasting like benefits, but without actually needing to fast. So we've had folks that have come in, started taking Mimio, and they were like, I've just never been able to fast before, but I really want to. The appetite suppression effects coming from the OEA really helps to get them to where they want to go, or even push past farther than where they've been able to be before, which is great for them. And then for the folks who are just like, I've tried it, I don't like it, I don't want to do it, then yeah, Mimio is great for just being able to incorporate into your routine without having to change any of the diet or lifestyle things.
Right, because I'm a fasting baby, like I told you. I like to eat my food.
And that's
Just
totally
like it.
understandable.
But are there any downsides or any contraindications, even of just fasting itself?
Sure. I mean, of fasting itself, definitely. Ironically, the people who could usually benefit the most from fasting are the ones for whom it's contraindicated, right? So if you have, type 1 diabetes, not necessarily type 2 diabetes, but, it can be a little bit complicated there. The elderly, right, could really benefit from the cellular regenerative effects of fasting, but the nutrient restriction aspects of it can really lead to, more frailty, sarcopenia, things like that. And then, pregnant nursing women, same thing, not a good time to fast there. Anybody who's really like, looking to procreate and have children, not great for the reproductive health, kind of like what we were talking about before, right? Where it's like fasting is this like no baby cue, evolutionarily speaking. So it's not great for those people either. And then, kids, right? Same thing there. Children should not be fasting. And, this can just kind of like help them. Like, Mimio for kids is not something that we generally recommend, but, we can help recreate those regenerative effects there as well. And so, yeah, that's kind of where Mimio can come in and have a lot of beneficial impact for the people who could really benefit from fasting, but just should not be doing it because of the contraindications.
Right.
For like the side effects of the product itself, the only one that we really know of kind of comes down to whether or not people have a genetic sensitivity to niacin metabolism. So some people can get, GI upset from taking NAD precursors like nicotinamide riboside, NMN, niacin itself, because there's just a problem with the high dose digestion that some folks don't have to deal with, and the majority of people don't have to deal with. But I would say in our experience, maybe about like 10% of folks that we encounter have that sensitivity. And so it can cause some GI upset there. But other than that, no side effects to report.
Interesting. And so there's a lot of conversation about getting off GLP-1 medications, like once you've lost the weight, because, there are a lot of issues around cost, coverage, etc., and they're very expensive. And so do you think that maybe this might be an option for people to try? Because it has that appetite suppressant thing. It has the anti-inflammatory thing, a lot of the similar effects.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's ironically what a lot of clinics that we partner with use Mimeo for. So we're partnered up with a lot of longevity clinics around the country who really try to use Mimeo as a way to help wean people off of the GLP-1 drugs because of those appetite suppression effects, right? And, a lot of people get to this point where they've lost the weight that they want to lose. They don't want to be on the drug anymore. They go off of it. But then as soon as they go off the drug, they haven't really adapted their diet or lifestyle or, cravings control in any other way besides doing the drug. So all the cravings kind of come rushing back. You get what I call the hunger withdrawals that happen. And most people end up regaining around 2/3 of the weight within, a year of coming off the drug. So the clinics that we partner with use Mimeo as a way to really like start going down in the dose for the GLP-1s and then transitioning their clients to this more natural alternative that can, just more seamlessly integrate into people's lifestyles. There's no injections. It's just the 2 daily pills.
Sure. And so have you done a study on that yet? Or are you thinking about that? Because that'd be fascinating.
I think that would be really fascinating. Yeah, we haven't been able to do that quite yet because we just completed our latest big randomized double-blind placebo-controlled. So I think that once we get more clinicians, signed up and we can build out a bigger cohort, that would be a really fascinating study to run.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's just something that people ask me all the time. And I am a GLP-1 weaning failure personally. I have tried to get off twice and been unsuccessful.
Man.
And so, anything that could help, because like, I don't know, you never know when you lose your insurance coverage, and paying $1,500 a month for that just doesn't seem like a good investment. Like I should put $1,500 a month into a Roth IRA or whatever. Anyway,
Literally anything else. Put it in the Ferrari fund,
anything. So I like to ask people at the end of the podcast what they think the future of GLP-1 is, but I want to ask you what you think the future of fasting is.
Yeah, what a great question. I mean, I would say, I'll be a little conceited and I'll say the future of fasting is Mimeo, right? So, I mean, what we're doing on the back end is, this original discovery study that we did to, decode everything that was happening with fasting. We identified that there were over 300 metabolites that were significantly upregulated during a fast. And of that 300, we were able to find around, 24 of them that had some kind of literature on them about having bioactivity, whether that was, enhancing autophagy or creating these anti-inflammatory effects or what have you. And those were the ones that we actually ended up screening through to find our powerful synergistic combination of 4. But then that leaves, 275 other targets that are also elevated during a fast that nobody really knows anything about. So what we're doing on the back end right now is basically, going through those molecules, assessing them on our cellular and lifespan extension assays to then find these, novel clinically derived health and longevity molecules that we can then use to even more robustly fill out the formula for better effects over time. So really, as we get further and further down the research rabbit hole, we can more completely recreate that biological state of fasting and get even, higher tier benefits, higher tier longevity effects, and just create a better product for people.
Interesting. So there's just like 300 more, 200 and something more
Right.
that you still need to look at. That's crazy. And who knows what those are going to do.
Exactly. And that's the thing that really excites me about the future of it all. And that's the cool thing about science, right? Like being able to find these new things that no one knew about before and actually use them to improve people's lives.
Right. And then just one last thing, like, okay, so we live 90% longer, like the worms or whatever that you're studying.
Yeah, sure.
Like, are we living healthier too?
Yes, definitely. That's something cool that we found with the worms as well, is that when the researchers were looking at them, like, yes, they lived longer, but they were also like more virile. They moved around a lot more. They had a better health span, right? And so, beyond just the lifespan extending effects, we are showing that, yes, there are these great health span effects as well, right? Being able to improve these metabolic markers to kind of get people's blood markers more in line with what they should be when they're healthy. The palmitoyl ethanolamide that's in the formulation is also really interesting. It's part of the endocannabinoid system, so stimulates through CB1, CB2 receptors. So it's kind of like your body's natural form of CBD. So it has these, mood and cognition elevation effects, as well as these very interesting pain relief benefits as well. So, really helping to not only address aging at the cellular level, but help to, well, I'll put treat in quotes, these kind of like symptoms of aging, right? Those like aches and pains of getting older. We have a lot of people who go on Mimio and can perform better in the gym or like push past their PRs
Mhm.
that they've been doing, or like the appetite suppression effect, right? You just don't have to feel as hungry all the time. You can get rid of that food noise. So not just these cellular benefits, but also these other, impactful things on day-to-day life.
Sure. So where can we get it? Where can we learn more about you? Like giving you the
The whole
website.
spiel. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about Mimio, you can go to mimiohealth.com. That's MIMIO health.com. We're also, on socials at Mimio Health. And then if you want to learn more about me specifically, I have a TikTok channel that's at that nutrition dr, that nutrition doctor, and you can see me yell about nutrition into my bathroom mirror because what else do you do on TikTok?
That's right. That's right. I'm not into the TikTok, but that's good.
Fair enough.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here. This is a fascinating conversation. I love learning about fasting, but like I said, it's just I want to do it, but I can't. But this is a great solution.
Definitely. Yep. That's what we're here for.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the GLP-1 Hub podcast. I learned so much from Dr. Chris Rhodes about fasting and GLP-1 and all the things. I thought it was a fascinating conversation. If you want to learn more about Mimio and what he's doing over there, you can check out the links down below. Also, I want to be sure that we are connected across all the platforms because there's a lot of things that I'm doing at GLP-1 Hub, and I want to continue to provide high quality information for your GLP-1 journey. So I'm working real hard over on the YouTube. If you're not watching this over on YouTube, it's GLP-1 Hub. You can find me over there. And I have several videos coming up that you're going to want to watch on the channel. You can also connect with me on Instagram or TikTok. Like I mentioned, I'm new to the TikTok world. And it's a whole different universe over there. So you want to come give me some support. I could definitely use it because I don't know what the heck I am doing. I think I might be too old for the TikTok, but I'm trying. Don't make fun of me too. Be sure to check out our GLP-1 Hub store. We have several resources for you, and just the website itself has a lot of articles and meal plans and other things that you can get to help you along your GLP-1 journey. And finally, if you're liking the show, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review, even just clicking 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify, or leaving a written review on Apple Podcasts is always, always, always welcome. I really appreciate it. It can help the show grow. And I want to say thank you to our sponsors of this show that make it possible for me to bring it to you every week. Thank you to Grunes and Hero Bread. And finally, Calocurb, which is a 100% natural appetite management product out of New Zealand that helps reduce cravings by 40%, hunger by 30%, and calorie intake by 18% in just 1 hour. And it can be used to help you along your GLP-1 journey, or whether you're just working on weight management in other ways. So be sure to check out their links below and use the code ANNA10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. And I'll see you next week.